So Emilia Romagna is fascinating, and it's fascinating because it's not just one worker co-op, right? You can point to one worker co-op in the States here and there, and people are like, okay, maybe it's not totally utopian, but they still can't imagine how it fits together. They can see the business, but they can't see the economy. You look at Emilia Romagna, though, and you see an economy in which 1/3 of the GDP of this region, it's a small region, maybe 4 million people, but 1/3 of the economy is generated out of cooperative business. This is really, really incredible. And it's
across different kinds of work, right?
Yep, across different kinds of work, different kinds of cooperatives. So some worker cooperatives, some consumer cooperatives, some producer cooperatives, but all really working together and held together in this really incredible ecosystem. And that's the key thing, right? It's not a monolith. It's not, one great idea that just happened to be really, really successful. It's an ecosystem of innovation, of mutual support, of cooperative finance, and all of these pieces fit together, and you have a situation where if you're talking to somebody on the street, you have a 1 in 20 chance of meeting somebody who's a worker owner at a worker co-op. It's an incredible cooperative density compared to the United States.
And is it reasonable to say that it has existed for so many years that obviously it meets a need? It's something that the people there value. It's something that they work to reproduce, that if there are enemies to worker co-ops, they have not been able to undo this cooperatively based economy.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think so. I mean, you see that it has generated real results for the people of the region, like higher wages. Honestly, it's one of the most prosperous parts of Italy, in part because you've had this cooperative economic development strategy that brings together basically small and medium-sized enterprises, some cooperatively held, some not cooperatively held, but all kind of tied together in a big network of innovation. And that network of innovation produces, high-quality food products, high-quality ceramics products, does exports, cabinets across the world, all sorts of really interesting small industries that together form really a network of prosperity for the region. And that is, I think, something that people are really attached to. I think they've developed the policies to accelerate this, right?
The government in that area supports them. In other words, the government provides benefits, supports, contracts to the worker co-op sector just the way it does to the capitalist sector of the economy.
Yep.
I think that's a very important issue because here in the United States, for example, when you talk about building up worker co-ops, people tend to think, well, that can only happen if the government helps them, as if there's something wrong with that. And then I have to explain, because I do economic history, that the history of capitalism is the history of endless efforts by every capitalist enterprise to get subsidies, to get contracts. The state has been supporting capitalism. All that the worker co-ops would ask is basically a level playing field of getting that kind of support for their alternative way of organizing business.
Yeah. And that's what's happening in Emilia Romagna and Italy more generally. You have a number of interlocking policies around cooperative finance. You have to take 3% of your net profits as a co-op and basically kick them down to the next generation of cooperative entrepreneurs.
To give them capital to help their business.
Yep, exactly. If you're unemployed, your business folds in Italy, there's something called the Marcara law, which allows you to take some of your unemployment benefits, but also to access wider cooperative finance and take over your business, run it as a cooperative, do it better than the bosses who ran it into the ground.
Right.
So there's all sorts of policies like this, favorable tax treatment, things that allow cooperatives to self-finance themselves and to keep money flowing within the cooperative economy.
So the worker co-ops, I assume, have been working to get politicians, political leaderships, government agencies to give them that support. In other words, there's a kind of almost natural collaboration between the worker co-op and at least parts of the political structure to reinforce each other, just the way capitalist businesses cultivated relationships with their political parties to get the support of the state. And there's nothing that should prevent the worker co-op from basically doing that too.
Yep. And just like, traditional businesses will have things like the Chamber of Commerce and things like that, in the Italian situation, you have very powerful cooperative federations that worker co-ops are part of, depending on exactly where on the ideological spectrum they lie. And these cooperative federations provide policy advocacy, but they also provide technical assistance, they provide financing support. So they become powerful ways of banding together for the
And
cooperative
so a
economy.
politician, not to push the point, but a politician would not want to be viewed negatively by the Association of Worker Co-ops because that would hurt his or her chances of reelection, etc. In other words, they have to respond to the worker co-op sector, given that it's a third or more of the economy in their region. They couldn't possibly ignore it, or at least it would be then a political
Yeah.
a warfare of some sort.
Yeah.